What's happening, comic fans? It is Mike from the Hardcover Comic here. Today we're going to do another top 10. This time we're going to look at Valiant. I've had a few requests, a good number of requests to talk about pretty much my top 10 favorite Valiant comic runs by specific writers or stories in general. I'm mostly going to focus on runs because there are a lot of really good runs. And really, truthfully, we're going to look at the 2012 to 2018 era of Valiant Comics. I can't really say that there was anything in the 90s that I thought was outstanding, although there are some good runs there. I also can't say there was anything outstanding with the recent stuff that's been going on, but I'll throw in some little information here and there of things that I have enjoyed from the more recent runs as I go through these books. Here, we're going to look at the deluxe editions as well, which I have for the most part. So I'll be flipping through those. We'll talk about these top 10 series. Be sure to let me know what you guys think. If there are series I missed that you really liked so other people can check those out, be sure to leave a comment down below. If you're new to the channel, you like what you see, subscribe. This is what we do. I'm talking about hardcovers, comic series in general. I'm doing overviews, reviews, live streams. A lot of custom bind stuff's going to be coming up in 2021, year of the custom bind. Very excited for that. But yeah, be sure to subscribe. This is what we do on a regular basis. If you're interested in the opportunity to win a brand new hardcover comic or multiple hardcover comics, check out our Patreon. For every dollar you give, you get entered into a drawing that'll give you a chance to win at the end of each month. What we do is really we're not trying to make any money here. We just want to give people the opportunity to get new comics for a pretty low price and a little bit of luck. So, we give it all back. If, last month, the person who won wanted the Lock and Key Master Edition, so that's what they got. This month's wrapping up. I got to put up the drawing soon. So for any of our patrons who are watching this, it's coming soon. I promise you. But yeah, let's get into this. Let's talk some Valiant. It's a great company. They do a really good job. They did a really good job of caring about their continuity, caring about their characters, caring about the fans that are reading the material. So let's dive in and talk about 10 absolutely incredible Valiant comic runs. Starting off with Harbinger, this is the run by Joshua Dysart, who did pretty much everything listed here. So he did issues 1 through 25 of Harbinger, along with Harbinger Wars. I sort of put a little reading order here, but yeah, it's a fantastic story. The Harbinger part of the Valiant universe is essentially their version of X-Men. A little bit of New Mutants in there as well. Really looking at characters, these psiots that have these abilities. They all vary, of course. Not everyone's got the same ability. You got a character named Toyo Harada who is sort of running a very large organization. He's a psiot as well. I don't want to give away too much with any of these books, so please bear that in mind as I talk about these. But it's really cool. It follows this character named Peter Stanchuk, who is a psiot, and he eventually gets caught up with Toyo Harada. You get to introduce to Livewire, who's a great, brilliant recurring character in the Valiant universe. And you sort of see this team of the Renegades, as they call themselves, grow. And throughout Dysart's run, you get to see the Renegades, you get to see Generation Zero, as they call themselves. Harbinger War, of course, is a crossover event for the Valiant universe with Bloodshot, Harbinger, and I think just the main Harbinger War series. Really good stuff. I really enjoyed these characters, the story, seeing them evolve, seeing sort of social issues that Dysart tackles with amazing artwork all the way throughout by a variety of really talented artists. Clayton Henry, Carrie Evans, really great stuff. But Butch Juice, a lot of amazing artists like which Valiant had for most of their titles. All these deluxe editions do come with bonus content as well. Quantum and Woody 0 through 12, The Delinquents, and Quantum and Woody Must Die collected across the 2 deluxe editions seen here. This was written by James Asmus with artwork by Ming Doyle, Kano, and a couple other artists as well. There's always a variety. But yeah, there's 2 deluxe editions collecting all of this Quantum and Woody run. This was the first sort of Quantum and Woody series in the reboot. Hilarious, funny, emotional. You get to it follows 2 brothers, and there's sort of one of them's adopted, and you get to see sort of that family dynamic between them, what happens with the father as well, and they're dealing with sort of science villains. It's really interesting. They're sort of the corniest of the Valiant universe. They're really the the Valiant universe in general doesn't feel like a superhero universe the way Marvel or DC does, but I will say with Quantum and Woody, it does get there once in a while. They have silly costumes. They're really funny. They deal on social media. It's great though because not only is it hilarious, it's action packed. It's full of little conspiracies and fun science things, and I really had a fun time with it. It had me howling multiple times. The Delinquents as a mini series is one of the funniest comics I've ever read in my entire life. It's a team up between Quantum and Woody and Archer and Armstrong. It's absolutely hilarious. There were so many times reading this book I laughed out loud. There were multiple times where it brought tears to my eyes thanks to that sort of brotherly relationship. Very, very well done. James Asmus, not a writer that I follow very often, but I think he crushed it on Quantum and Woody. I wish we could have done more. There was another volume that came out afterwards with Daniel Kibblesmith and Elliot Rahal, which was also quite good, which I do recommend checking out as well. Next up, Ninjak, 27 issues plus the 4-issue mini Rapture. There were 2 deluxe editions for this. Matt Kint, Clayman, Raul Allen, Cafu, Juan Jose Rip, Butch Juice. Amazing talent working on this book. Matt Kint, thanks to Valiant and his work at Valiant, became one of my so he showed up on my radar and he was at the top of my radar. It's amazing. So each issue here sort of has the main storyline and it's got a backup little lost files as they call it, which gives you a little more background info on Ninjak's training, his upbringing, his things like that, his past basically. Ninjak is a gentleman named Colin King who is a Brit that works for MI6 sort of as this Ninjak character. A fantastic run. Matt Kint does a lot to, again, progress the character, develop him, give you a little bit of his past. Amazing artwork by Clayman, you can see here. Overall, I mean, it's really great to see because Ninjak shows up quite frequently in the Valiant universe prior to getting his own ongoing series. This was years into the Valiant universe, and he had shown up in multiple other titles like ExoMan War, Unity, a variety of other titles, a few events as well, if I'm not mistaken. And so it was really cool for him to get his own ongoing story, doing his own ninja espionage thing. It's sort of a mix of James Bond, Batman, and pretty much any cool samurai. I can't really think of any off the top of my head right now, but that's really what you're getting here. He's a great character with a lot of awesome lines. And Matt Kint sort of had a really good vibe for the Valiant universe. He really understood what he wanted. Real consequences, really tight continuity, and you get to see that in titles like Ninjak, like Unity. And seeing artists like Juan Jose Rip, Clayman, Cafu working on a title like Ninjak is absolutely amazing. You get introduced to a character named Roku here, who ends up being, again, a pretty significant part of the Valiant universe. If you guys are interested in more Ninjak, there is actually a Ninjak versus the Valiant universe 30-minute thing you can watch on YouTube. Pretty great stuff. Next up, Divinity. So there were 3 miniseries for all of Divinity. It was a trilogy. All by Matt Kint, all written by Matt Kint with artwork by Trevor Hairsine. There are also tie-ins for Divinity 3 that I do recommend checking out, but you'd be fine with just the main story here. I don't want to give away too much with Divinity, so I'm not going to say too much or show too much of it, because just trust me, it's one of the coolest and most entertaining comics I've ever read. It's epic, it's emotional, it's very, very creative. It's Matt Kint doing what he does best, is taking the idea of comics and making the story involved in the idea of comics and the concept of comics and the way comics function. Without giving too much away, the Russians send people to the edge of the galaxy. Things happen, and an entity called Divinity returns. You get to see Unity show up and try to deal with him. You get to see how he deals with other problems, more of his history and his upbringing and his origin. And then you get to find out what else happened. I'm not going to spoil anything with Divinity 2 and 3, but there's a lot of crazy stuff that happens, a little Elseworld kind of vibe to it. Really fun, really highly recommended, stunning artwork. Can't recommend Divinity enough, truly. Next up, Wrath of the Eternal Warrior, a 14-issue series by Robert Venditti, Raul Allen, Juan Jose Rip, and Robert Gill. What a fun time. What a fun time. This followed an event called the Book of Death, which I would recommend reading beforehand, but you don't necessarily have to, because Robert Venditti does a good job of sort of catching you up and letting you know as a reader what happened in that event and why why Gilad Anipada has found himself in the position he's in. If you want a brief overview of who Gilad is, he is one of the Anipada brothers, three brothers that discovered this thing called the boon in ancient Egypt, that granted them all specific abilities. First and foremost, though, is immortality. One of the other brothers is Aram Anipada, who is Armstrong from Archer and Armstrong, which didn't make any of my top 10. But anyway, this story follows Gilad exclusively as he sort of deals with. You find out what happens to him every time he practices his immortality. You get a little bit of his past and his history in here as well. Amazing artwork. I love Raoul Allen's artwork. There's a great sort of overshadowing of a conspiracy here as well, which is really, really fascinating. I love the character of Gilad Anipati. He's got so much wisdom, but he still has so much to learn, and he's so determined, such a strong-willed man. Really fantastic series, amazing action, amazing heart-wrenching emotional moments. Great stuff. I loved it, absolutely. Venditti's a beast. Next up, I'm going to talk about ExoMan War. This is, however, the second run of the sort of reboot. This was ExoMan War 1 through 26, along with Eternity 1 through 4, sort of crammed in between there. A lot of incredible artists. This is Matt Kint's run. He wrote everything. Thomas Giorello, Doug Brathwaite, Ryan Bodenheim, so many, Clayton Crane, incredible artists working on the title with Matt Kint. I've got my custom bind here. This sort of follows, there was another run within this sort of Valiant reboot glory years that I'll talk about a little later. I'm not sure why I didn't decide to talk about that one first, but Matt Kint he did the second sort of series of for ExoMan where he did make some changes to Arik of Dacia's character. Arik of Dacia, which I'll go into a bit more in depth once I get to the Robert Venditti run. He was a Visigoth in the, I think, 6th century or 5th century of the world, and he, due to things that happened to him, he got this armor, Shanhara, and he came back to the what we call the present now. And in this run, he's really in space for the most part. He's dealing with things that he didn't have to deal with in that first volume. He's on different planets. He's sort of trying to find himself and work on not being as reliant on the armor. You get to find out why that is too. Very powerful stuff. This also does, the reason I included Eternity here, Eternity is sort of the spiritual successor to Divinity, but it does tie into one of the last story arcs in this ExoMan War run, so I threw it in there as context. I think it works really well. You get to see a little bit of Arik's past here as well, as he as there's a sort of a flashback arc during the Harbinger Wars 2 saga of this book. You can see Eternity here, amazing, more Trevor Hairsine artwork, absolutely beautiful. So many great stories in this omnibus, in this run alone. What a magnificent, Matt Kint is just, he's so good when it comes to the Valiant universe. Highly recommend checking out his ExoMan War run. Next up, Bloodshot Reborn, really Jeff Lemire's entire Bloodshot. So from the Valiant number 1 through 4, and a bunch of issues of Bloodshot Reborn and Salvation. You got artists like Miko Swain, Louis LaRosa, Butch Juice. Really beautiful stuff. There was a deluxe edition for Bloodshot Salvation that I did not put up there because I have a custom bind for it, but it is available if you want to pick that up as well. Highly recommend you do. It's a brilliant story. So this follows Bloodshot. There was a Bloodshot run prior to this that started in, I believe, 2012 or 2013 by Dwayne Sverchinsky, which is also brilliant. It just didn't make my top 10. Again, there are so many great runs in the Valiant universe. I had to choose 10, so I chose the 10 I did. I chose Jeff Lemire's run over Dwayne Sverchinsky's. The reason I chose Jeff Lemire's is because he really gets into the psychology, the empathy and the emotional side of Bloodshot, of Ray Garrison, if you will. Bloodshot is a character who does not really know his origin in the Valiant universe. Almost said DC, in the Valiant universe, because he's been experimented on by a corporation called Project Rising Spirit. They sort of manipulated him, gave him potentially false memories. He's not sure where he comes from, who he's been. This series follows the Valiant. Like I said, it's part of the sort of reading order I put at the start, because the Valiant changes a lot for Bloodshot, and really it's not critical. Again, you can read this just fine without reading the Valiant, but it'll give you some additional background information as to some of the characters that show up here. Of course, Bloodshot's trying to find love. He's trying to live a more normal life, trying to figure out who he is as an individual. Really powerful stuff. Jeff Lemire takes you on a hell of an emotional roller coaster ride here. You get to go into the past, the present, the future even. Oh, it's so cool. So well done. So many great creative ideas here. A really fun run with a lot of action, a lot of emotion, and amazing artwork all the way throughout. Next up, Rye and 4001 AD. This is Matt Kint, Clayton Crane, Cafu. Incredible with the 4001 AD event as well. So you had 12 issues of Rye. Then you had this 4001 AD event going on with Rye, sort of as a tie-in to the event. Rye is actually one of the cool. It's one of my favorite books from the Valiant universe. One of my top three, I'd say. It takes place in the year 4001 AD, so you're jumping really far into the future, and you'd think, well, how is that gonna tie into the continuity? How is that gonna affect other books? Oh, it does. It does. Don't you worry. Don't you worry about that. You'll see how it affects things. 4001 AD was an event that the Rise series sort of leads up to. And what I really loved about the 4001 AD event was that the Rai issues themselves gave you flashbacks to previous versions of Rai, the history of New Japan, as it were. So essentially, in the year 4001 AD, you have New Japan, which is sort of floating in the sky in orbit above the planet. The planet's sort of a barren wasteland that's been terraformed. And in New Japan, they have thousands of levels with all these. Everyone's living there. There's never been any murder. It's run by an AI. It's really crazy and intricate. There are a lot of really fascinating characters here. You get to see again a bunch of New Japan as Rai and his new companions sort of explore it. And amazing artwork, amazing action sequences by Clayton Crane. He does all 12 issues of Rai. He does the 4001 AD event, the main event title, and then for the tie-in issues, you get Cafu's art, which is spectacular. I don't want to show any of it off, but I wish I could. It's so good. It's so good to see the history of New Japan, one of my favorite arcs in any superhero quote unquote comic of all time. Get it. Next up is the first ExoMan War series. Ran for 50 issues total and tied in with the Armor Hunters event, primarily with a little bit of Unity. You get a whole, I mean, the list of artists that worked on this title is so long, and they're all such great artists. I highly recommend looking at their artwork. This was written by Robert Venditti, who, at the time wasn't a huge writer on my list of writers to look out for, but his work at Valiant was spectacular, especially with this ExoMan, where you start off with, Arik in Dacia, like I had mentioned earlier. Arik of Dacia, he's a Visigoth, in the 6th century. And you sort of get to see what happens to him, how he gets this armor, who he encounters along the way, what happens to his people, what happens to him that he winds up in the present. There's a lot of really late, and that's the first story arc. What happens after that is you get to see the incredible progression of a character who essentially starts off as a barbarian and becomes a king of men. It is glorious. It is one of my favorite things about this run and the Valiant universe is seeing the growth of this character, seeing him do things that would be otherwise completely unpredictable. There don't need to be any shock twists in this title, although there are very many shock twists, because a lot of the big twists, the moments that hit you and you go, oh, is when you see Arik of Dacia do something you would never have expected him to do in the past, and you see him expound on the reason he's doing that. Fascinating. Really well done. It's really what won me over on the series. Also, I mean, of course, learning about the Valiant universe, a lot of characters come in through here. This is where you first get to see Ninjak in the first arc, or the second arc, rather. Really awesome stuff. I love this run so much. I can't recommend it enough. All ExoMan War during the glory years is worth checking out. The last title is Unity. We only had one deluxe for it, but Matt Kint wrote this. Unity is essentially the superhero team of the Valiant universe. You do see members come in and out of it depending on what's happening. Like I said, there's a lot of progression and a lot of evolution within the Valiant universe, so things don't stay the same for too long. A lot of changes happen, a lot of alliances form, and a lot of fronts are changed. It's very interesting. Amazing artwork all the way throughout this series. It crosses over with multiple titles and events, which you'll have to get a more intricate reading order for online, but truly, for the most part, aside from the couple times it crosses over, Unity is a book you can read on its own. It's got an amazing cast of characters. It's great to see how their relationships all evolve and interact. The funding for this team changes over the course of the book. Really awesome stuff. The Armor Hunters event in particular, I've mentioned a few times, is quite devastating to the Valiant universe. And it was a great show of the fact that, you know what, things that happen in this universe don't just go back to a status quo. Things really evolve and progress. And it's really nice to see a team like Unity not feel super corny as a superhero team. They feel covert at times. They feel very realistic. And in general, the Valiant universe feels more realistic. They are superheroes at the end of the day. If you look at them, you know, they wear costumes and they have abilities, but the Valiant universe in general does a great job of really making things serious and giving them a tone that the big two don't seem to be able to do. There's sort of a realism to the silliness that is these superheroes based on their origin stories and the way they behave and the way the teams behave and the villains behave. It's excellent. I love Unity so much. God, I just want to go back and read through the entire Valiant universe again. Well, folks, this is the time. If there's any I missed that you thought were really worth checking out, that you really, really enjoyed, let the folks down below know. Of course, there were a lot of other series I couldn't include. I'm just trying to talk about 10 here, and there were a lot of really good runs in the recent years at Valiant Comics, at least before they got purchased by, I think it was DMG. But anyway, we'll see what happens. Maybe some good stuff will come out of that still in the future. I'm optimistic. I'm hopeful as always. But let us know down in the comments below what you thought, what other Valiant series you think are fantastic and worth checking out. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. This is what we do on a regular basis. We've got a Patreon as well where we do hardcover comic giveaways at the end of every month. A lot of fun stuff going on there. We also give away digital codes whenever we can, whenever we have them available to us. So check that out if you're interested. We got merch as well, if you want to know, if you want some. We got mugs, we got shirts, all kinds of, we got different logo designs as well. You can make a hat as well if you want to. A lot of fun stuff there if you're interested in THC merch. And looking forward to the year 2021. We're going to be doing some fun stuff with custom binds. We do need to release sort of an official video announcing what's going to happen. We're going to do some fun contests, some cool giveaways. And we want to get everyone involved. We want to get you guys involved, see what custom binds you're doing, show other people what custom binds you're doing, and keep the CBD fed and keep sacrificing to the CBD. It's going to be great. The custom bind demon's going to be very happy in 2021. But that's it for me on this video, guys. Thank you all very much. This is Mike from the Hardcover Comic. Hope you guys are all doing well, staying safe and sound. And if you're not, I wish you all the best and a speedy recovery. You guys are the best. Thank you all very much again. Until next time, you stay classy, Internet.